to Simpler. We are three pastors, husbands, and fathers on a journey to make life simpler by holding Jesus as the core for every belief and practice. This journey has shaped us to be more like Christ, freed us from the shame of failure, and encouraged us to a deeper love of our Lord and God. We invite you to join us in the discussions that have shaped and continue to shape our lives.
Like, for example, my running shoes, when I started running again in April, day one, and I already put like 400 miles on these shoes, day one, and it had been a year. And I got them out, I started running. My knees hurt, my hips hurt. I was like, these shoes suck.
Terrible. Mm-hmm.
And I could be like content and be like, well, I'm just going to take
that's
the
not contentment.
shoes, yeah.
No, I don't think that's contentment.
I don't think so either. That would have wrecked my knees and hips.
I think that's a different thing. That's like that's cheap.
Yeah. But
contentment's not always contentment.
Agreed. But I think that people...
Yeah, they're two separate things.
I agree, 100%. I think that people could take that extreme mindset, though, and be like, well, just be happy with that you have shoes. And you're like,
sure.
I'm going to wreck my knees and hips, and then am I going to be happy I'm in the hospital getting surgery or whatever? So went and dropped $140 on some shoes, and
that's actually pretty cheap for...
No, it wasn't bad. They were on sale. They were on sale, so it was nice. But
I wish I could tell you that's what I drop on.
Yeah. But I pay now for my running shoes because I can feel it in my feet, knees, and hips. That
mine wear out like running the disc golf course. I don't know, 3 to 4 times a week. We'll call it 3 times a week. Mm-hmm. It takes mine like 7 months to be toast.
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, not toast, but like I can tell a drastic difference.
Yeah, in the padding and how it's supporting the foot and stuff.
For like $180 shoes, which I've every once in a while, I find them at Ross for like $90. Yeah, and it's like, even if I'm not planning on it,
you're like,
even if I don't have the money in my budget that month, that's like,
put them in the closet and they're there. They're ready.
That happened a few months ago.
Yeah. So what I shared with you guys this past week about Colossians and how it connects to Galatians and Ephesians and the language is so similar. I shared that with my Friday Bible study, and Jordan goes, it's so simple. And I was like, I know. And it's so frustrating that I've missed it for so long. And so what was cool though is the other night, Michelle and I were getting ready for bed and we were sitting there talking, and I was telling her, man, I haven't told you what I learned last week. And she goes, yeah, you texted me about it, but you haven't told me yet. And I was like, well, it's a lot. And so I was like, I'll have to get out my Bible and like show you and stuff. And we were lights out. We were just talking and it was getting late and we were ready to go to bed. And so, but then I ended up telling her all of it because I had walked through it.
Well, yeah, because you're the guy who's like, have you seen this movie? And then you tell us the whole thing. Like, we know how this goes.
But I had seen it twice when I had shown you guys and then shown my Friday group. And I realized, oh, okay, I've seen it twice now. It's all the pieces are there now. Like I can walk through it. And I told Michelle, I was like, that is something I enjoy. That like I can see it a couple of times and then it's there. And I can point to it on the page and begin to find it in my head. And so, but I was super excited about it and want to dive more into that, unpack it a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So cool. So much fun.
We're not talking about your fun today, Ryan.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we are. What are we talking about, man?
It's the 5th Tuesday, Pierce.
5th Tuesday.
December 30th, 2025. And I want to talk about when do we as Christians take up the sword? Now, this idea has come to me from 2 different places. One, in Matthew 10, when Jesus sends out the 12 disciples, he tells them, take no sword, take no money bag, just basically your garments and your sandals on your feet, and everywhere you go, people will provide for you, blah, blah, blah. But at the end, at the Last Supper, before he dies, he says, I told you before, take no sword, but now if you have a sword, take it. Peter says, we have 2. He goes, that should be enough. And he says, take money bags now. Like, so there was a time to not take a sword and a time to take a sword, right? Mm-hmm. And the other thing that made me think about is a couple of months ago, when Micah, you were talking about the people after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, you were talking about the people up in Washington State or something like that, where they were saying, we got him in the neck, or they were chanting all that. And you were like, man, if I was walking past that group, I'd have to say something. And so what's interesting to me is I think that there is a time to say something and a time to not say something. There's a time to, Paul is told by God in a vision or in a time of prayer that like, you're going to go to Rome and you're going to bear witness about me in Rome. And so he's arrested and he's taken to Rome and he doesn't fight that. But there's another time that he's arrested and they're about to beat him. And he goes, is it lawful for you to beat a Roman? Like he kind of kicks against it, right? And so that doesn't seem like taking up the sword. But my point being, I think that some people think that Christians have to just be passive all the time.
Yep.
And what I would argue is there is a place for passivity. There is a place to take the beating and there's a place not to. And so how do we begin to decide when is it appropriate to take up the sword?
All right, can I reshape that real quick?
Please.
I don't know if that's passivity. Like
Okay.
So let me give you a thought and let me explain why I don't think it's passivity. I think if I'm suffering for the sake of Jesus, I'm letting it happen. So like if someone is persecuting me specifically because I'm a follower of Jesus, not like making fun of me because I'm a Christian, but like, hey, renounce Jesus or we're going to kill your family.
Yeah.
I'm taking it. I'm throwing you into jail because you're preaching Jesus. I'm taking it.
Yeah.
I don't actually think that's passivity.
Okay.
I think that is being someone who is following in the footsteps of Jesus for the sake of the gospel.
Love it.
Because passivity is Gandhi.
Okay. Agreed. Yeah.
And I think it's completely separate.
Yeah. I like it.
I don't think my heart's any different, but I actually think that's the problem is that Christians think that they're passive. Or pacifists, I guess you should say. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, we're not called to be pacifists.
Like where? Show it to me. Where? And they're going to point to things like Paul just being arrested or Paul letting a group stone him, those kind of things. I don't think that's the case. I think all of those were intended for the gospel. So my guess is the times you're talking about, like when Paul says, where is it where he's like, should you arrest me since I'm a Roman citizen? It's in Acts, but I forget
it's
where.
in Acts, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
I think this is shrewd. I don't think this is different than him in the town where he gets stoned. Because he goes back into that same town, and preaches Jesus,
Iconium or wherever.
Yeah. So I don't think it's a passive thing. I think it's intended to be for the sake of the gospel. Like, how is the gospel best presented in this moment? Does that make sense? So I don't think it's passive at all. Because passive would imply like I'm just letting it happen no matter what.
Yeah.
A heart for the gospel is very active.
Exactly.
Like I am actively allowing this to happen.
Yeah.
For the sake of the gospel. The jailer, when Paul and Silas are in prison, and then the jailer, him and his family get saved. Like, it's for the point being the gospel. He wanted the gospel to be proclaimed. I don't think it's for the sake of being passive. That's my thought.
Yeah. So
it's very antithesis of the Gandhi, because that's what I think, the Gandhi pacifist mindset, which is what I think a lot of people associate with Christianity.
So, for the sake of conversation, not passivity, but
when do we let it happen? When do we fight back?
No. Yeah. But I'm just trying to think. Maybe this is Philippians 2, one of my favorite texts. Have the same attitude in yourself, which is also in Christ Jesus, who became a bondservant to God and became obedient to God to the point of death, even death on the cross. So maybe those times, that's obedience and not passivity. Like when you're arrested or you're being beaten, it's a submission to God rather than a trying to keep the peace kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So it's submission.
Where is trying to keep the peace
but not to people. It's a submission to God for the sake of the gospel.
Right. I mean, I don't think the idea of, who says it, live peaceably amongst men, amongst people.
Yeah, Paul does in Romans. But as far as it's possible for you, be at peace with all men.
I don't think that the intention of that is for the sake of peace. I still think it's a gospel mindset.
Yeah,
right?
I would argue that in Romans for sure.
So I don't think that the goal is passivity. I don't think that the goal is peace.
Yeah.
I think the goal is the gospel.
Well, and maybe the reason that maybe where we're wrong in this, right, is is we're putting ourselves and interpersonal relationships at the core of the definition. So if we step back from that and say it's about submission to God, then when is it right in submission to God?
What do you mean by submission to God?
As Christians?
What do you mean? Like when you're just now saying that, what's your thought?
Just what it talks about in Hebrews and Philippians, where Christ was submitting himself to God in all things.
Yeah, but what does that look like? Because like
obedience.
I know, but like
you're looking for more specific?
Yeah, because I have a feeling obedience looks different in a situation like that with different people.
Yes. Yeah.
So here's what's going to happen. Someone's going to hear you say, I'm submitting to God by being obedient in this moment. And for you, that might be interacting with these people a certain way. And for Pierce, it might look completely different. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
and then someone could take that standard without any explanation and go, Ryan was being obedient to God and Pierce was not.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's an excellent point. I think that, how do I say this? So before we make it too specific, I think that we would agree.
Oh, I'm asking. I'm just really just asking what you mean.
I know.
Okay.
I like it.
Okay.
I want to work there.
Okay.
But before we get to that point, I think that all Christians would believe that we should be obedient to God, or let's not say obedient. Let's say that we should seek to glorify God.
Yeah.
So our aim,
I think obedience fine.
I know. I think obedient. I think it's fine too. I think that obedient makes people think law first.
Agreed.
So glorify God in obedience.
It's an easier. It's an easier explanation.
Yeah. So I'm meaning with you guys the same thing.
I got you.
Now, what it looks like for me to glorify God in any given circumstance, to your point, might be different than what it looks like for Pierce to glorify God in a similar or same circumstance. But the heart of it has to be God and not the people we're interacting with. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I think what I tend to do is go, how can I make peace with this person rather than how in this situation do I best glorify God?
Yeah.
And my focus is probably on the earthly circumstance rather than the other.
Yep.
So, and I think when we're thinking about peace, we're thinking about interpersonal relationships rather than the glorification of God.
Yeah.
You with me?
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense.
I think the flip of that must be true. Might not be, but in my head, I feel like it must be that when you take up the sword, you're not taking up the sword with that person in mind. You're still taking up the sword with, how do I glorify God in this?
100%.
And there's times that glorifying God is taking up the sword.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
So maybe the mistake that we make when we're talking about when do we be peaceful, because I think that's how people are going to talk about it, whether they mean to or not. So
I still think it's fine because it's different than passive.
Yeah. Okay. So I think when people are talking about when should we be peaceful and when should we take up the sword, I think even including myself until we started having this conversation, which is what I like about Fifth Tuesdays, I think my tendency is to look at the situation and the person I'm dealing with rather than the situation and how I glorify God in it.
Yeah.
And so maybe the step back of when do we promote peace in a situation and when do we take up the sword in a situation has to be figured through how we best glorify God and not how do I best serve this person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the
focus is wrong.
The focus has got to be the gospel in terms of the interaction with the person, but that might look, to your point, that might look different in certain situations. It feels to me more like meekness, like you've brought up before this, the clip you'd sent us of the pro boxer, the UFC fighter at the game,
right?
This dude's like yelling in that guy's face, and you know that dude could just demolish the guy who's screaming at him.
Yep.
But he doesn't, right?
Right.
That's not passive.
No,
it's meek. It's like it's a sense of peace.
It's intentional peace, intentional gentleness,
because he knows what he's trying to accomplish, right?
Yeah.
That's my thought. Is in the same perspective. Someone could point a gun to my head and say renounce Jesus or I'm going to kill you. And I'm going to be like, well, what are you going to take from me? The fact that my life rests in Jesus allows me to respond in that moment without fear, without a sense of trying to hold on to this life. But it also is a thing that if someone pointed a gun in my face and said, give me all the cash in your wallet, that's a wisdom decision.
Right.
I might hand him my wallet depending on the situation. I might.
If a guy came into our church intending to do people in our church harm, our safety team is putting him down. I think that's the right time to wield the sword, if you will.
Sure. And I think that might be, I actually think that's a different conversation, but I think it's important to talk about because I think probably people have trouble distinguishing those two things. That's why I said at the beginning, I really think the distinction for me is, am I suffering this for the sake of because of Jesus?
Yeah.
I don't mean let me explain that.
Yeah.
If someone comes into the church with an AR and just starts firing, I don't think they're doing that because they're specifically persecuting me because I'm a follower of Jesus.
Yeah.
They're pissed at they had a bad church experience or they're off their rocker or something's going on mentally in their brain that allows them to do this. I think, or a giant dude in overalls on a motorcycle stops at the church and starts screaming at Ryan and cussing him out that. Something is up with that person, right?
Yeah.
That is not if that dude had pulled a gun on you when that happened in the parking lot, he's not coming to church saying Ryan Dalgliesh is proclaiming the gospel and I'm going to stop it.
Right.
This is a situation where he's emotionally charged because of a traffic incident, and now you just happen to be in the mix.
Yeah.
I think that's a different thing than someone showing up at your house and kidnapping your entire family and telling you, like, stop preaching Jesus or I'm going to kill your family. Those are two completely separate things, I think.
Yeah.
So I think how I handle the dude on the motorcycle or someone who's walking into the church just shooting is the sword.
Yeah.
Not literally, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, I do.
It would be really awkward if I pulled out a sword on Sundays if someone's walking.
So dope, man.
You're like Highlander and you just always have it on you.
People are like, okay, wait, he's not Asian, but he's acting like an Asian right now. Like, we just watched that. We watched Nobody 2, where the dude says, "Don't bring a machete to a katana fight." Like that. Like that's like I pull out my katana at church. But that's also me, right?
Right.
I'm trying to think of someone. All right, like a Zach O'Neill. It's like such a nice guy. Like I could see Zach approaching that same situation with a dude on the motorcycle where he's like just calming him down.
Yeah.
Right. This is a personality wisdom thing based on your tendencies.
Yeah.
If that dude taped both of us up and said, "Stop preaching Jesus or I'm going to shoot you," Zach and I would respond exactly the same way.
Right. Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think the difference is that your perspective is, I'm going to glorify God in whatever I'm doing. And sometimes that means I'm shrewd like Paul, saying, wait, can you really arrest me because I'm a Roman citizen?
Yeah.
You're being shrewd. Sometimes it means you let them arrest you as a believer for the sake of the gospel because you want people to know the gospel. And sometimes it means that you say, you're not doing that.
Yeah.
You know? So I don't know. I think when I think back too on like different people in the New Testament, I feel like the responses are different. Like I feel like someone who takes a hardline stance on Paul saying, if at all possible, live peaceably amongst men, or whatever he says, however he says that. I'm sure I'm misquoting that.
You're super close.
I think if they took a hardline stance on that, and it's across the board, it's just peace with men in general, I think Paul would be disagreeing with Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jesus very much sought to battle the scribes and the Pharisees in terms of their perspective of the law. That was very not peaceable.
No, and called them snakes and vipers and sons of the devil, and like
it's not very tolerant, Jesus.
No,
part of what the Romans were concerned about is that he's this revolution is rising. And they're trying to squash it,
and that's I think that's a little swordish.
Yeah,
you know. And
it is the epitome of swordish.
Yeah.
I love this word.
And so that's our new,
how were you today? Pretty shortish.
That's our new adjective, right? But for real, like I think that there are Christians who would be incredibly uncomfortable with Jesus and Paul in today's world and say, well, that's not very peaceable.
Yes.
And you're like, because Paul says in one of his letters, I think Galatians, he but I don't remember because I read them all in a moment. But he talks about he says, some of you think that he's strong in his letters, but he's weak in person. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I can be strong in person. He goes, what I am with you away from you, I am with you, you know, and Paul is very firm in his letters. And I think some people, I'll put it this way. The people who would go, oh man, I love the Bible. I love what Paul says here. And I don't think people would love Paul in person. I don't think that people would be okay with what Jesus does in person. Mm-hmm. And I think that their behavior, would fly in the face of a lot of Christians who are saying, well, we just need to be peacemakers. Mm-hmm. Right? Because what they do wrongly is they go, blessed are the peacemakers, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Yeah. They take the Beatitudes, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. They take these things, which are Jesus being very specific, quoting these Old Testament texts that all point to a Messiah, showing their need for a Savior. Yeah. Yeah. And then they just wield them, and they ignore that Jesus is standing in the synagogue saying, woe to you scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites.
Which is basically death to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the interpretation of it.
From a prophetic standpoint, it is condemnation and death. There's woe and blessing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if he said it with fire in his mouth, or if he said it like, "What are you guys? Y'all are hypocrites."
What are those old videos with Jesus where he's like, "Well, here, the scribes and Pharisees." Like that's how people think.
Just super soft and gentle.
Yeah. What are you scribes and Pharisees? There's a part of it, depending on who the person is, that could be more insulting sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But
I don't think that's how Jesus said.
No, but. I mean, no, because he flipped tables in the synagogue, because he made a whip and drove them out.
And if you've read the Old Testament and God's passion and emotion as he's writing to his people Israel in the Old Testament, there's no way that's not something that's conveyed in the person of Jesus.
No, like when God talks about, or David talks about God coming down in, what is it? It's Psalm 18 and 2 Samuel 22. Same psalm. It's in both places. And it talks about God coming down and wrapping himself in the clouds like a thunderstorm and coming down, and he's dealing with the enemies and stuff like this. There's a lot of those kinds of descriptions in the Bible.
Yeah.
And I think what we miss is that there is a time to... There was a time for Jesus because it was what he was meant to do. There was a time for Jesus to submit himself to them. He says to Pilate, he goes, you couldn't kill me if I didn't want you to kill me. He's like, it's my time. This is what's supposed to happen now. And so Christ gives himself over into the hands of Pilate.
He was like, Pilate, you can't kill me.
But there's a time to be peaceable with people, and there's a time to not. And when it was time for Jesus to die, he took it, to your point, like if this was what was supposed to happen. But he also flipped tables. He also told his disciples, and here's what's funny to me. He tells them, get some swords, and Peter goes, we have 2. And he goes, that should be enough. And so Malchus, who gets his ear cut off that night in the garden where Christ is praying, like, that's kind of on Jesus, because Jesus is the one who told his guys, grab a couple swords, we're going to need them.
Imagine being Peter. What are you doing, Peter? You said get the sword. This felt like a sword moment.
I want to know.
Aren't we supposed to be swordish at this
They're
point?
fighting.
I want to know if he's really, really good with the sword or really, really bad with the sword.
Oh, right.
I was aiming for his head.
Was it his head and you missed, or was it on purpose?
You're trying to crack that skull open and you just missed. It's like when
I was trying to hit you in the knee.
When I was 15 and Haley was 12, my sister Haley was 12, we were walking from my grandmother's house about 7 blocks back to our house with our cousins. And Haley kept stopping in front of me and just being a sister. We were brother and sister. And so it annoyed me enough that I finally shoved her. And when I did, her shoulder like hit her ear and her earring stabbed her neck.
Oh,
like the little back of the earring or whatever stabbed her neck. So she turned around like just angry, and she brought her fist down, knuckles down, off on the cross of my nose and broke my nose.
It's a crazy way to punch somebody, man.
Yeah, just knuckles down, man. And just like, and I was so swollen. Like my face was flat completely across. I had big raccoon eyes. I was so glad it was over Christmas break and not during school where I'd have to go and say my 12-year-old sister broke my nose. But she could see, I mean, it just instantly swelled up, and she was like, I'm so sorry. She goes, I was aiming for your shoulder. That's Peter in the garden. But in Haley's defense, we were kids and we'd get those little rings in the pool and you'd throw them and you have to catch them before they hit the bottom. We'd play these games. The whole thing was going to blow up. And one time she was like, I'm throwing this one so far, you won't be able to get it this time. And we're playing. And she throws it. And instead of going to the left, it comes straight in my face and hits me square in the teeth. And I had just gotten braces. And so my lips are just sliced. So her aim was always suspect. But yeah, that's a good question. Is Peter just really bad with the sword? Or is he so precise?
And I have a feeling that this was all shrewd on Jesus's part as well. Like this is still the gospel story.
Yeah.
There's still something to this that is beyond the sword. I think where people mess up is they think about this conversation in terms of, am I like angry fighting, or am I passive, let people do whatever they want? And I think both of those are stupid.
Those are both extremes. Yeah.
And neither one of them are gospel-centered.
No.
I think that a gospel-centered life, a life that's bent on glorifying God, and I think this is what you meant by being obedient earlier, will be able to follow where God tells them to go. All right, one of the coolest stories I'd heard in this realm was when we were at that conference years ago where Ashfin Ziafat was telling a story about the pastor from Iran that called him. Pastor calls him. Ashfin's here in the U.S. He's Iranian, from Iran, but like is here as a pastor. He has a buddy who's a pastor in Iran, calls him and says, "Hey, I'm about to get arrested. The police called me and said, come back to your house. We found out you're preaching Jesus. We're going to arrest you. If you don't come home, we're going to arrest your wife and daughters and to throw them in jail." And so he's like, I'm on my way back. And he said, "Ashfin, will you ask the church in America to pray that I'll suffer well?" Like that, that is not passive.
Nope.
But we would say, I think some people wrongly would say he's being passive. He's not being passive. No. This is for the sake of the gospel.
That's boldness. Like,
it is. It is he's letting them arrest him, but it's because he's suffering for the sake of Jesus.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't know if his perspective is the same.
To be honest, it would be super cowardly to be like, okay, you can take my wife and kids.
Yeah.
Like
cowardly.
What a coward.
But like I think the distinction is there's situations that don't have anything to do with Jesus, where you have to imply or implement some wisdom in the situation. I'm thinking like, all right, Cammie gives me a hard time at this time of year. Well, now that we're recording this before Christmas.
Come on.
Gosh, Micah, you ruined last week. You're ruining this week.
Hey, what'd you guys get for Christmas? During Christmas, the stores are crazy. And my boys are athletes. My older three are like athletes, like super athletic, fast. They give me crap because they're like, "You're old and fat," and I'm going, "You still can't beat me in sports," so like that's fine. But they don't like going to the store with me because I just go fast.
Yeah,
and
let's get in and out.
I cannot stand people who just linger in the middle of the freaking aisle, especially Christmas, and I'll just push my way past.
Yeah,
people look at me like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "What are you doing?" Like,
yeah, right.
What do you mean? Why are you? You're standing in the. I don't ever say this in my head. I'm like, "You're in the middle of the aisle. Why are you looking at me like that?" People.
Yeah. Make room.
And it's always people who take up the entire aisle.
Yeah.
Like, why? I don't know. Anyway,
they put their caddy corner.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm going through the store, right? This has nothing to do.
You shall not pass.
That happened to Sam's the other day. This lady, like, stared at me, and I'm like, those aisles are huge.
Those aisles are huge.
They are.
And you took up the whole thing.
I'm impressed.
She's like looked at me like, "What are you doing?"
She's laying down in the middle, starfishing.
Anyways, that has nothing to do with Jesus.
Yeah.
Right? Now, my response to people can be from the perspective of how I want them to see me. Right? Yeah. There's some wisdom here.
Sure.
I'm a pastor in town. I'm someone who represents Jesus, not that just pastors represent Jesus. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's wisdom to be implemented in this moment, but she's not like, "Oh, look, there's that dude who proclaims Jesus. Block the aisle." Right?
Right.
This is why is it wrong for me to go fast in the stores? You know what I'm saying? Like, people are like, "You should be passive," right? Like, this is a personality thing. This doesn't have anything to do with Jesus. Sure, there's wisdom from a gospel-centered perspective, but it can't be one-to-one.
Right.
It can't be like Zach O'Neill's, I will just use him as an example because I already did. Super nice guy. I imagine he's a lot nicer to people in the stores than I am. In those situations, you can't say.
I'm going to laugh when I get a text and he's like, actually,
I'm like the worst. Now, Stephanie, I have no idea. That might be different.
She's so tiny, she's just cutting through the crowd.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Yeah.
But like, you couldn't say to Zach, "Well, Micah just pushes through. Why don't you push through?" Or you couldn't say to Micah, "Well, Zach, I don't know if he does this, but like, Zach's really nice and just lets these people go." You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
Those two can't be in the same conversation.
Right.
They could be in the same conversation of a gospel-centered mindset, but not in response. Like, you don't, if someone says, "You stop preaching Jesus or we're going to throw stones at you till you die," stone me.
Yeah.
If someone says, puts a gun in my face and says, "Give me your car," I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I give him my car and you see what I'm saying? Yeah. That doesn't have anything to do with Jesus. They just want my car.
Yeah.
So I think people have to start thinking differently about these situations in terms of I think you're right. I think people think it's either you're completely passive or you're just like, when people take up the sword, they think like, I'm going to angrily just like, they think of the Crusades.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point.
And I think the Crusades are not a good example. First of all,
godly. Yeah.
No, because it's not really Christians.
No.
I mean, there were probably some in it, but it was like institutional Christianity, not actual followers of Jesus.
Yeah, the aim wasn't the glorification of God. The aim was the eradication of people who weren't.
Right. Yeah. Well, which is weird because a lot of them weren't either. But I know what you're saying.
I know. Yeah.
So I think that's the problem in this conversation for a lot of people is they don't know. They approach it not from a biblical perspective, but from a cultural perspective of what they think it means to be peaceful or to be.
Well, I think what people do is they reference First Samuel sometimes, and then they'll talk about how David twice had the opportunity to kill Saul, but said, I won't lift my hand against the Lord's anointed. Mm-hmm. So like, man, I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to lift my hand against the Lord's anointed. That's a very... Yeah, right. But that's a very specific case that God has anointed this man as king. Like that's a very specific case.
Yeah.
And I think you could make it supernatural. You can make it super spiritual and be like, well, all Christians are anointed. And I do think that we as Christians should strive for unity amongst each other.
We have the same spirit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I also think Paul and Barnabas had a sharp disagreement that caused them to go different ways. Mm-hmm. But I also know that Paul later speaks incredibly well of Barnabas and John Mark.
Yeah.
Like he didn't hate them for it. He was just like, look, we can't work together anymore.
Yeah, that's honestly probably just smart.
Yeah. You know, we just kind of go about this differently.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think like.
Are the situation where that dude is screaming at David and he's just taking it? Probably cussing at David and he's just taking it. And
Shimea or something like that.
What does David says?
Well, he was son of the Benjamites. So he was a descendant of Saul, basically. And he was like, as David's fleeing from Absalom and leaving Jerusalem, he's crying out, now the kingdom's going to be given back to Saul. He's cursing him and stuff, and he's throwing rocks at him and dirt on him. And when they come back into the city after Absalom's been defeated, that guy's like, hey, my bad. I'm so sorry. And Abishai or whatever, one of the brothers of Joab, Abishai might be dead, it's Asael. Anyway, one of the brothers of Joab says, you want me to go and strike him down? And he goes, look, the Lord's given us victory today. Like
what do we need to do that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he goes, what do I have to do with you, brothers?
What does he say the first time when he's like screaming at him? He says something like
he tells because the same thing happens. You want me to go kill him?
Yeah.
And he's like, look, maybe God told him to curse me. You know?
I have heard that used from a camp of passivity. Like, this is how we respond to people in these situations. And I think the reality is maybe yes sometimes, maybe no sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't think you can take a one-to-one with David's situation and this is a one-to-one with us every single time.
You can't, because you know why David wasn't allowed to build the temple?
Because he was a man of war.
He was a man of war, man of bloodshed. So you can't look at one thing and go, well, in this case, he didn't go after that guy. In the case of Saul, he didn't go after that guy. God, when David says, hey, God, I'm going to build you a temple, God goes, yeah, no, you're not. He's like, you're a man of bloodshed.
Here's the ultimate mic drop for those moments when people want to make those kind of situations. Like,
and then we're just going to cut off the...
It's done.
We're done.
The absolute rule for us, I'll always ask, like, how many wives did David have? And they don't know. I don't know. I can't remember
enough.
I know. I can think of two specifically. Anyways, point being, even if it's two,
it's more. It's like 6.
I'll be like,
and then concubines. He had 10 concubines.
I'll be like, so what's the one-to-one there?
Yeah.
Oh well, no. That's not like. What do you mean?
Yeah.
No, that's not what I mean. Like it's.
Yeah.
I got so many things in my head. Like I have no problem saying, let's learn from this.
Right.
Agreed.
Like, what can we learn from the character of David and his heart for God and how he responded in the situation?
Yeah.
But the moment you make it a rule, you have to say, it's okay that I marry a whole bunch of women.
Right.
And have a whole bunch of other women I sleep with.
Yeah. Which is stupid.
It's stupid, right? So I think that's the problem is people look at the Bible holistically and they go, okay, we're going to take these specific situations in the conversation that we're having now about the sword or not sword. They go, well, here's a situation in the Old Testament. Well, here's Gideon and how he responded. See, you don't actually go fight the battle. You just you surround it, do it.
People do that. They quote Exodus 14 or Exodus 14:10 or something like that that says you need only stand still and watch. The Lord will fight the battle for you. But again, that's Exodus 14. The people are leaving Egypt. This is the crossing of the Red Sea,
it's
right?
Specific to
it's
that
a
group
very
of people.
Specific text. Are there other places where God does something similar?
He told them to go destroy the people that were in the land.
Right. But before that, there are other places where God goes, no, I got this. I got this. But there are more examples where he says, yeah, go to battle and I'll give you victory.
Right. So it can't be every time because it wasn't every time for them. So that's the issue. Is I think
this is people wanting to take Jeremiah 29:11 and ignore Jeremiah 21.
Yes,
exactly.
Here's my guess is that people already have a preconceived idea of what their take is on this conversation.
I think you're right. I think people think that the sword means unbridled anger.
Yeah. And I don't think that's the case.
No.
Honestly, I think the sword probably... Let's rephrase it, because the sword is just Jesus saying that, right?
Right.
So everybody understands what we mean by that.
Right.
We're not actually saying the sword.
Right.
Not literally. Maybe sometimes.
Maybe sometimes, yeah.
Maybe sometimes. But this is what you're saying. The conversation is really, what moment do you, if persecution happens, do you let it happen?
Yeah.
Without any kickback? Mm-hmm. And what moment do you basically fight?
Yeah.
And that's the question, right?
Yeah.
We're asking. And I think a lot of people think of this conversation in terms of a cultural moral or a cultural comfortability or uncomfortability, instead of having a heart for God to be glorified in every moment. And I actually think I really like the idea of obedience. I just wanted you to explain it, because I think you know. I think if you're walking with Jesus, I think you know in the moment. I think you're going to know.
Which we're talking about next week.
Okay, cool, perfect. I think you're going to know, like, all right, this is a moment I step back and let whatever happens happen. I think there's a moment where you're more like William Wallace and you're like, here, check this out. I'm going to fight you. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there are different situations.
Yeah.
My dad's been in some sticky situations in Southeast Asia, where like the stickiest was they were in this one spot. I can't say specifically where it's at for safety reasons, but they were just visiting some local Christians in this very Muslim area, and some of the other local Christians came and found them and said, "Hey, you need to leave right now. There's two guys that are on their way here. They found out you're here, and they're coming to kill you." And so they left. Should they have stayed? Right? You know what I mean? Some people would be like, "Just take it."
Yeah.
I don't think that's the wise thing in the moment.
Paul
right?
didn't do that.
Right. So
Jesus didn't do that.
I don't think people want to make this kind of like a universal, like, here's the line you draw on the sand. And I don't think that's the case. I think if your heart is, I want to glorify God, I think you'll know.
Yeah. They want to make it a rigid law.
Yeah.
Yeah. That has an absolute black and white. And so there was a pastor years ago, and I'm going to qualify this and say, I didn't hear him say this. So I'm not even going to say his name because I don't want to wrongly attribute it to him. Yeah. But there was a pastor 20 years ago that was attributed as saying that he didn't even think it was right to put someone down if he came home and they were raping his wife. And I disagree. Like, if I come home and I'm doing everything in my power to put that guy down with prejudice, with great prejudice, and not going to feel badly about it.
I think that might be one of those like personal things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I honestly don't know how. I mean, I would be incredibly brutal. Yeah. I'm not sure I don't know if I'd try to kill him. He might be hanging from the ceiling by something awkward by one time the cops get there.
I'm just saying,
but this is a you thing.
I'm not stopping until he is done.
Right. Well, and you also know jujitsu.
No, I don't.
So you're like, hey, I've been practicing for this.
Class this morning proved that I don't know it.
But let's take our three personalities for a moment. I think we would all agree that if that moment happened, the tendency who's going to be the most brutal is not Pierce. No.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But who knows? Yeah. Right? You walk in on a situation like that, who knows what... My point is, I don't think you approach a situation like that and go, all right, here's the universal rule.
No, you can't.
Yeah. It's the same conversation, which this is probably open to Canada. I want to open with this, but like, should Christians fight in wars?
Yeah.
It's a similar, like the people who want to make a universal line in the sand, here's the rule. I don't think you can.
No,
I think there's a difficult situation.
Yeah.
That is tough to make decisions on these kind of things. So, I mean, I in my head, Jen and Tedo tell me all the time, like, there's no way you're not killing a dude. Because I've said before, I think on the podcast, like, if someone breaks into my house, I'm going to shoot him, but I'm going to try not to kill him. And they're like, there's no way you're not going to.
Yeah.
So, and they might be right? Yeah. They're the experts in this. All I know is, like, my 12 gauge is ready because it's quick and I don't have to be a perfect aim, and it's going to do some damage.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not thinking in the moment.
Right.
I'm saying now, like, my thought might be like, I'm trying not to kill this guy, but I don't know about the moment. I might just shoot him in the chest and be done with it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I might not have my 12 gauge and I might pull out my katana.
Yeah. Well, I just think that there is, I think that maybe when people go, oh, you shouldn't take up the sword, as I said a moment ago, I think that they're thinking of unbridled anger. And I don't think that we could say when Jesus is saying, woe to you, or flipping tables, that it's unbridled anger. I think it's focused. I think it's
still gospel-centered.
And it's on purpose anger.
Yeah.
There's a control to it. You know, there's an intent to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good point. Because I
So-
think people think of anger as a whole as something that's wrong.
Right,
Exactly.
except for the psalmist says, and then Paul quotes it in Ephesians 4, be angry and do not sin. We see God angry. There is an anger that is not dishonorable to God.
Right.
Yeah.
And there is a justice that is meted out by God that people would go, oh, I can't, people all the time go, I can't believe God would do that kind of thing. There is a time to take up the sword. There is a time to met out justice to the wicked. There is a time to also let the wicked, for the sake of the gospel, do what they're doing. Like, I mean, in Luke 22, Christ was handed over to them, and the Bible says, Jesus says to them, this is now your hour and the power of darkness. There was a time to let the wicked be wicked.
Yeah.
And then there's a time to not. But I don't know. I think you're right, Mike. I think people make it too black and white.
Yeah.
There is I think New Testament wise, there is a big distinction between how you treat people in the body of Christ and outside the body of Christ.
Yes.
And that might be an important distinction for people to know.
Yeah.
Like it's, people
There's
always
not
say,
supposed to be division between those who are of faith.
no, but you're supposed to judge each other.
Yeah.
So I think that's like people take
Yep.
it. I think you can go two directions. With
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
I like
People
it.
are like, no, just let them, you're not supposed to, don't judge me.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Actually, I'm not supposed to judge those who aren't believers. I'm
Right,
supposed to
exactly.
judge you.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like I think there should be more, how do I say this? There should be, I think this is what Paul's intention is with live peaceably amongst men. It's I might be wrong. It feels similar to, I'm trying to be all things to all people. Heart. Like the reason he goes to Mars Hill and says, I know who your unknown God is. I mean, would we say that's the best way to proclaim the gospel in every situation? No, right? Doesn't make any sense.
But
Like,
it did make sense.
it did in
there.
that moment, right? He's being shrewd without he's proclaiming the gospel. He has this like, compassion is the wrong word. He is softer with people outside the body of Christ.
Then he is,
Yes.
with those.
Because I think it's gospel centered. With those inside the body, he's harsher because he wants them to represent the gospel well.
there's an expectation. Well, it's Jesus flipping the money changers' tables in the synagogue because they're the religious leaders. They're the ones, but it's Jesus embracing the people who were caught in adultery or like the gospel. The aim is the gospel.
Yes.
These people over here in the synagogue claim to know me, and you're making a mockery of the name of God, and I'm pissed about it.
Yes. Yeah.
And these people over here don't know me. They recognize that they're sinners, and they're coming to me for salvation, and I'm going to be tender to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think you see the tenderness even in how they suffer. Even Acts 5, when their disciples are leaving.
Yeah, sure.
And they say, they got beat for proclaiming Jesus and they left rejoicing that they were counted worthy to suffer for the name. There's a sense of softness there for the sake of the gospel. Like we're taking it because we want you to know Jesus. And that's different from the expectation of people inside the body of Christ. I think for me, there's like multiple levels to this. Like there's, all right, false teachers inside the church. If someone ever wants to see me like actually angry and brutal,
Yeah, for sure.
it hasn't happened very often, but like the couple times I can think of, the people around me that knew me were like, you guys have been in those awkward conversations with me. Everybody kind of backs up and they're like, but this was like, they want to be like a mile away. You know what I mean? It was just like all filters gone, just flat out, like whatever's coming to mind, you're getting in that moment. That's about as brutal as I can be. And that's just false teachers. I don't even think I'd be that brutal if I'm like in Southeast Asia and they're like, we're going to cut your head off. I don't think that would be that way. I think there would be this, whatever word is the best to describe this, is softness for the sake of the gospel. And then maybe a level up from that in terms of like being brutal is calling people to the carpet on sin in their life that's not representing Jesus well. But then at the same time, if someone's like, give me all your money, I don't feel the same softness in the moment for the sake of the gospel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
That's
does.
a personal thing, I think.
One of the things we haven't talked about in this conversation that I think figures into it, I think we are such a culture of weaklings now that people categorize things as the sword that 100 years ago we would be like, what?
Yes.
That's a nice, yummy dinner. Like what are you talking about? That's the sword.
Yes.
Because I was watching a deal the other day and it was funny because it was just talking about, I shared this with you guys. I don't remember if it was on a podcast or not, but English professor what he does at the beginning of his class every year with these 18-year-olds. And he says, look, I'm going to have you write these 3 big papers. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. He goes, I just wanted to remind you that 100 years ago, you wouldn't have had this opportunity. 100 years ago, you wouldn't have had the AC. 100 years ago, you wouldn't have had this. You would have been fighting these diseases. You would have been in this war. You would have been working with your parents in the field from the time you were 8, and you'd be doing it for 12 hours a day. And he goes, so as far as difficulty goes, writing 3 papers is not that big of a deal. Like, get over it, right? But now everybody wants whatever they want and whatever they believe to be validated. So when you go to somebody and you say, well, you're wrong, they're like, oh, why are you being so mean to me? And they're treating that as the sword, when actually I think it's kindness. Like, to be able to go, no, like, this is me being nice.
Yeah, if there's any disagreement now at all, culturally, people are like, oh my gosh, you're being so mean.
And I think that people classify things as the sword that aren't the sword. And so, like, we have to make room. There still has to be a sword. It still has to figure into the equation. There's still a time for it.
Okay, that's a good point in terms of, I'm even thinking like I'm with non-believers a lot in the ministry I'm doing on the road. And there are some times when I like just have this softness for someone, and there's sometimes when they're saying a bunch of BS and I'm like, nope. And there was a time that you guys were all hanging out after a round of disc golf late one evening or something like that. And somebody came up to you and said, hey, this guy over here that I played with today or I met today, he's a Christian just like you. He's a Mormon. Oh, yeah.
And you went off and you're like, no.
That was one of the situations where someone was like, I want to be like a mile away from here. They were like, what happened? Like, who are you?
Yeah, because you were... The gospel was
a false gospel.
Yeah, this is flipping tables.
So here's what it was. The guys I was with, that were on my team, none of them were believers.
Right. And you're wanting to make sure that they know that those are not the same
other
thing.
guy saying this was not on my team, is a team we just played, and he's proclaiming to be a Christian.
Yep.
False teachers saying this. And so I need my entire team to know, here's what's so cool. I blasted that dude.
Yeah.
Like, he might have cried. Like, I'm not joking. Like, blasted him. We get back to the house later that night, the Airbnb we're all staying at. Everybody's sitting around the table. We just had some dinner, a bunch of wine. And I sat down and had a glass of wine with these guys, and they all wanted to know.
Yeah.
They all wanted to talk about this.
Yeah.
Because it's a side of Micah they'd never seen.
Right.
I got to share the gospel in such clarity that
Here's
night.
why that mattered so much. Yeah.
It's for the sake of the gospel.
Yeah. And you wielded the sword correctly.
Yeah. If I'd had a sword.
If you had just said, well, I don't want to stir up anything. I don't want to rock the boat. Yeah, okay, it's kind of the same, and left it like that, then you've misrepresented Jesus.
Right. I also,
that situation requires the sword.
I also think that's Micah. You know what I mean? Like,
okay, yes, but any Christian worth their salt that doesn't pull the sword in that moment's a coward.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, but I think what I'm saying is, like, I think someone could confront it without the same intensity as Micah. Like, you could say, hey, that's not right. You could say, you could be like, well, that's not really right. You know, you could do that voice. And like, I think that you could confront it, like make a hard line and say, no, this is not the gospel. Here's what I mean. I think that I don't think you should. Well, I'm just saying, like, the intensity looks different.
I know. I think it should.
No, it has to. Like, you can't say that, because then that's like someone, you can't take the measure of somebody's personality and make that a measure for everybody.
True.
Because someone could have the same intensity, but it comes off softer.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Sure.
So I don't think you could do that.
Okay. Fair.
There's no way anybody's matching my intensity in that moment. Like, it
won't look the same.
If you and I approached it like it happened the same thing, but 2 different times, and someone filmed it, it would look like I was meaner than you.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Maybe.
Same intensity. No, I promise it would.
Yeah.
My point is, you're going to think you're being mean in the moment, but if you just measure it, they'd be like, whoa, it was like a whole different level. That's what I'm saying. Same intensity. I'm with you on the intensity. Like, you don't let that go.
No.
It's cowardly to let that go.
Yeah.
But what I don't want to do is make Micah's intensity the measure for how people handle the situations. Because I do think it's Micah.
I still think I still think that situation requires the sword.
100%. Yeah.
The sword might look different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somebody's got a little sword.
or I think even
a katana.
I think even if it's the same size sword, I see your Schwartz is as big as mine. If it's the same size sword, I think someone like runs somebody through straight, and I might like chop a few times on one side of the head and on the other. You see what I'm saying? Like it's the same sword, but like different tactics. It looks different.
Right.
It'd be a lot easier if it was if it was shorts though. Like that'd be easier to run someone through.
Schwartz.
My sword comes out of my ring. That was such a funny movie.
The second one's coming out. They finished.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that.
They foretold it 25 years ago in the original movie.
That's right.
But I do think you're right. There are times for if we as Christians let
the gospel's at stake.
Yes, we can't let that go. And I think that's what people miss is this isn't a conversation about peace.
No.
This is a conversation about the gospel.
Yes.
And sometimes what that looks like is peace. Sometimes what it looks like is the sword.
If the conversation you're having about should I be peaceful in this moment, should I wield a sword in this moment, is about the people, the relationship, rather than how the gospel is represented, I think, then you're in the wrong place. Because to your point, you needed to have that strong of a remark against a false gospel, but also for the sake of the guys you're playing with so that they can see the difference in the gospel.
Yep.
So the gospel's preserved for them.
That's what I was going to say.
But then there are also times when you let something go for the sake of the gospel so that you have an opportunity to share the gospel with this person.
Yes.
And so if the gospel isn't the motivator, then I think you're already wrong.
Yep. And that's what I meant earlier, but I think you're going to know how to handle it.
Yeah.
If your heart's in the right place, I think you're going to know how to handle it.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody came to me yesterday and they were telling me a little bit of a story about just how terrible their parents had been to them growing up. Just really, really bad situation. And a pastor told them recently, well, you have to honor your father and mother. The Bible says so. And they're like, man, I don't know how to do that. And I said, I don't actually think you need to. And they said, what do you mean? And I said, well, the assumption in Exodus 20, the assumption in Deuteronomy 5, the assumption in Ephesians 6, the assumption in all those places is that father and mother are people of God who are honoring the Lord. It's the same thing as in Ephesians 5, wives submit to your husbands as he submits to the Lord. And people keep telling wives, you need to submit to your husband no matter what. No, you don't. Like if he's beating you, if he's wicked to you, like you submit to a husband who's submitting to the Lord. But the assumption in all these places is that your parents are honoring Jesus.
Yeah.
If your parents are abusing you every night, there's no honor there, right? And they were kind of like, oh, because like somebody's telling them, well, you just got to be passive. You just got to take it. You just got to do the right. Like, no. Like,
and I don't even know what that means.
I know.
Like the honor part.
I don't either.
Because if the interpretation of that is honor your father and mother, or in Ephesians 6, obey your father and mother, is just let them do whatever they want. Man, that is, someone told me recently, maybe it was one of you guys, that they knew somebody that when they turned 18, you were telling me this, that their dad already had a whole bunch of credit cards taken out on their name and they were maxed out and it was on their credit that they were responsible for. Like, really? That's honoring your father?
Yeah.
No.
You're going to honor that guy? No.
Right.
He's sabotaging.
So I don't even
your
know
life.
what, like, I think, I understand what the intent was in Exodus. I actually think it's a different conversation than Ephesians, but like, I think that I understand both. Ephesians, what people miss is Paul says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ.
Yeah. Right.
If
he's speaking to the church, he's speaking to the believers.
Right. And if your parents are not seeking to like submit to you in the sense as a son or daughter out of reverence for Christ, then it doesn't make sense for you to obey them, because to your point, their heart's not to honor Jesus and what they're doing.
Yeah.
So like, I don't even know, like I could see for the sake of the gospel approaching my parent who's being an idiot like that from a certain perspective for the sake of the gospel, but not letting them get away with whatever they're doing. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah. No.
I actually think it is this passive mindset. The Christians think we're supposed to be passive.
Yeah. And they miss, like, they just look at, well, we've mentioned a lot of different texts, but they mention all these texts. I'm not going to raise my head against the Lord's anointed. Well, maybe God told him to curse me. Well, but like the opposite of all of those also exists in the scripture. Right? And so that's the question. How do we know? And I think we have to evaluate, how do I best represent the gospel in this situation? And sometimes it's peace, and sometimes it's a sword. And you'll know. If your aim is the gospel of Jesus, you'll know. And we'll talk more about that actually next week.
I can be maybe to like close this out, just transparent for a moment about a simple situation that doesn't really matter a whole lot, that I can say, like, I think has been a growth point for me. And it's actually the shopping cart thing in the aisles. My frustration doesn't change. I still want to get in and get out. And like, why am I going to the stores at this point in the year? I have no idea, but like I'm going. What's changed for me is recognizing that like, if that frustration in the moment is something that lingers the rest of the day, it has meant way too much to me. And that is too me-centered, right? And that's I think that's been the growth is like, now what I'm able to do most of the time is just move on. Or here's another example. I always pick the wrong line.
Me too, man. Yeah.
Always pick the wrong line. And when it is this time of year and the lines are really long, I find myself like antsy, frustrated. That I think that part of me is just because I try to like the way my brain works. Everything I see everything so efficiently. Like oh, there's a better way, more efficient way to do this. So I'm watching this happen, and I'm like, how did I pick this line? Right? It's the most inefficient line. It's like people are flying down these other lines, and in that moment, I have to remember there are people in this line who need to see a picture of the gospel. That's what's been the growth for me is moving past me to a point where I see
probably not a sword moment.
No, no. Not unless someone in the line turns and goes, I know who you are. Screw you for preaching this gospel. And I'll be like, oh, you opened that door, sucker. Like, you know what I mean? But no, it's not a sword moment. And I have to remember, just being transparent, that I have to think about people in terms of the gospel. So like what's been helpful for me is to think, like there's probably people in this line who, man, could really use some help at Christmas. And so it just changes your perspective, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
that was fun.
That was a good conversation. I mean, they usually came back to what we always come back to, Christ at the core.
What do you know? It's about Jesus and the gospel.
It's about Jesus and the gospel, right?
One day we'll just start there.
I know, right? I don't know why people keep listening. Like we just end up the same every time.
Have a good week.
Thank you guys for being a part of the Fifth Tuesday, for listening and following along. We'd love to hear your thoughts, because I think what we've discussed throughout the entirety of the podcast is we've heard arguments from both perspectives, either using the scripture in a non-contextual way or elevating our own feelings or our own emotions over the moment. And I know that there's plenty of people that have said, like, well, you don't get it. Like, he did this to me, and it's like, it shows the self-centeredness of it. Or you don't get it. I read this one verse. Like, oh, cool. Have you read around the verse? Like, I think these conversations are worth having for the sharpening of our brothers and sisters in Christ, to be able to rid ourselves of a mindset that is ineffective for the sake of the gospel, and embrace a heart that is submissive to in obedience to God, submissive to want to glorify God. And I think that in the midst of that, we're also going to have eyes that are now free to see opportunities around us for the sake of the gospel. Some opportunities that may be more aggressive than others, some opportunities softer than others, but either way, opportunities for the gospel, right? Not opportunities for the furthering yourself, not opportunities to misuse the scripture.
That's actually a good point. Probably the antithesis of that mindset is self.
You're exactly right. Yeah.
So whether that's a passive mindset or over the top aggressive mindset, I think it's a self thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, the majority of people probably hate confrontation, so it's probably easier to say we should just be passive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We just walk away. Yeah. So for those of you guys here, like still here,
and those who aren't,
take note, and those who aren't, take note. Like I think that I was challenged recently by a Francis Chan book. One of the things that he was just talking about was like praying for God to point out certain things in his life, and he has a whole chapter about just deception. Like there's just lies constantly around us, lies of the enemy, lies of the world, lies we tell ourselves. And he said one of the things that I've adopted in my prayer life is just, God, show anywhere in me that I've believed the deception, I believed the lies. And I think in these situations as well, I want to encourage ourselves as well as you guys. Pray like, God, where have I elevated myself where I shouldn't have? Where have I put my own comfortability, my own personality, whatever that might look like, above submission? Where have I, like, show anything in me that I can truly submit to you in, right? There was a long time ago, Ryan, where you were preaching at ASU, and one of the metaphors you gave was like, walking with Christ seems to be a lot of times where God is shining a light in these dark places in your life, and you're like, oh, thank God, like we've really shined this out, we've really exposed a lot of stuff, and then God turns around with the flashlight and it's like, now we're going to work on this. And there's this maturity process that goes in the midst of that. So I think adopting these type of prayers, these types of mentalities, enhance and encourage that continued humility as a believer in Christ, as a follower follower of Jesus, longing to glorify him. So thank you guys again for being part of the Fifth Tuesday. We love Fifth Tuesdays. It's a lot of fun to be able to work through stuff and just talk about it and invite y'all to be a part of the conversation. So to extend that invitation even further, follow along on social media, shoot us a message, let us know what's going on. There's a handful of people that shoot us questions, but also will let us know about stuff that's going on in their lives or opportunities they had. And so we want to continue that invitation even further to you guys. Just let us know what's going on.
If you have a spare katana and you want to send it to 13218 West Cross Lane, San Angelo, Texas 76904, we'll happily use it.
Then do it. It'll be the church's sword, right? Use as necessary.
Just kidding.
Hangs on the wall behind the sound booth.
Exactly.
Or just in the entryway.
Exactly. Just anybody who needs it.
Easier to grab.
Just grab it and go.
Break the glass for katana.
Somebody's got to do it now. We're going to have like a prop one that's really small and that's just mounted in the corner. So yeah, follow along on social media. You'll see our personal pages tagged in the show notes down below as well. That's the easiest way to get in contact with us to know what's going on. We also want to give a huge shout out to Steven here at the Garden Audio. We love being able to come out here and be able to see him, be able to be encouraged by him, and also just know that this is something that's taken care of, that's not a burden we have to wear for the podcast. Thank you guys for following along, and hey, keep Christ as core. What could be simpler than that? We'll catch y'all next year. Bye.
Next year.
We'll catch you guys next year.